Hey guys, how's it going? So this video is going to be about my interpretation and how I look at Michigan House Bill number 6134. But before I do that, the reason why this bill is getting so much attention right now is because, as you probably already know, the Michigan Supreme Court, the highest court in the land of Michigan, just struck down Governor Whitmer's executive orders, all of them, every single one, pertaining to her emergency declarations of 2020. And this has to do with the mask, social distancing, businesses that are allowed to be open, so many things. But I think you guys already get that. And the fact that while the law was very clear that she had 28 days without their approval and they would have to reapprove, which they did not vote to reauthorize on April 30th, that she's had no force in effect. Well, furthermore, the Supreme Court decided that no, these laws were unconstitutional to begin with. So to make a long story short, as of last Friday, it was over. These executive orders, executive actions by the governor were deemed unconstitutional, and therefore they're null and void, have no force in effect, and they're gone. Well, of course the governor came back, and this is why I call her a tyrant. Not to be mean to her as a person, but just because it's true, and we shouldn't be afraid to call out tyrants when we see one. And I see one, and she is one. And to prove that, she came out and said, nope. Not only is she not going to acknowledge the legislature, the duly elected representatives and senators from the state of Michigan, but now she's going to ignore the Supreme Court. And she said she has 21 days to appeal or look into things further. No, actually she doesn't. And if you guys want to know more about that, look at my 2A EDU channel. That's my main channel, mainly firearms, but issues that I'm passionate about politically as well. I had constitutional attorney Catherine Henry, friend of mine, on last night. We had a great stream. There's more than enough information from Catherine on that topic. But to make a long story short, no, it's over. On Friday, it's all done. Well, she said no. She was going to go around the court and the legislature, ignoring separation of powers, because we're supposed to have three branches of government, right? The legislative, that's our representatives and senators. The judicial, that's our court systems, ending at the high court, which is our Michigan Supreme Court. And then, of course, the executive, which Governor Whitmer does lead, unfortunately. She said nope, she was going to use other methods to get around it during this magical 21 days that she says she has. And constitutional lawyer Catherine Henry says no, she doesn't. And so do many other legal scholars. They agree with Catherine. So one of the big things she's using to, quote, work around is having local health departments. And now the whole Michigan Health Department enact their own ordinances, whatever you want to call them. Jackbooted bureaucracy, if you ask me, just to put it bluntly. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just going to tell you guys how it is, because jackbooted bureaucracy. And they're just going to go through and say, no, we're going to do it now. We're going to pick up and try to work around where the governor left off after she was shut down. Now, as far as I'm concerned, these people are in the executive branch of government too, the Michigan Health Department, right? And if it was ruled unconstitutional for their boss, the top of the executive, Governor Whitmer, to do these, how's it legal for them? And I think it's not, but they're just going to keep doing it until somebody stops them. Apparently the legislature can't stop her. Apparently the court can't stop her. All right, this brings us to House Bill 6131, and I've known about this bill for over 2 months. I haven't talked about it. And before you guys get mad, listen to me on this. Many of my friends are, advertising this, saying we need to get behind this and get this passed. And these are good patriots. Many of you that are behind this bill right now are my friends, and I think you have the best of intentions, but we might disagree on whether we want this bill to pass. And I'm just going to get it out in the open. I do not think Michigan House Bill 6134 is something that I want to get behind. I suggest you to always think for yourself, but I'm going to suggest you take a closer look at what it really says, and I'm going to do that right now. So, Michigan House Bill number 6131. It's really short. I'll put the link to it down in the description, and I'll read it quickly for you. August 17th, 2020. Introduced by Reps. Riley, Stephen Johnson, Eisen, Paquette, and Lower, and referred to the Committee on Government Operations. I'm going to read the summary first, and you guys need to pay careful attention to this. As soon as it starts with, the people of the state of Michigan enact, that's the bill, This is what's called the summary. This is written by their lawyers. This is a summary so we can easily understand it. Now, with many bills, including this one, often in my opinion and in many people's opinions, the summary doesn't always tell you the whole story. It's not supposed to be intentionally misleading, but sometimes it is. So just keep in mind, this first paragraph I'm about to read you, if this is enacted, voted through both chambers of our legislative branch in Michigan, signed by the governor, codified into law as public statute, it's going to start right here. The people of the state of Michigan enact. But I'm going to read the description first, which is not technically part of the bill, and then I'll read the bill and try my best to explain to you what it actually says and what it doesn't say and why it might not be quite what you think or hope it is. And all right. A bill to prohibit municipalities from requiring an individual to wear a face covering on public or private property or in a public or private building, to provide for the powers and duties of certain local governmental officers and entities, and to provide that certain local ordinances, resolutions, or policies are void and unenforceable. That's the summary. Let's look at the bill. The people of the state of Michigan enact 1. Section 1. As used in this act, A. Face covering includes, but is not limited to, a face mask, face shield, or respirator used to cover an individual's nose and mouth for sanitary purposes. B. Governing body means the body in which the legislative powers of a municipality are vested. Municipality. C. Municipality means a county, city, village, or township. These are definitions, right, that are found in many bills. Okay, pretty straightforward. Here's where it starts to fall apart real quick. Section 3. Beginning on the effective date of this act, the governing body of a municipality shall not adopt or enforce an ordinance, resolution, or policy that requires an individual to wear a face covering on public or private property or in a public or private building. Section 5. Any provision in an ordinance, resolution, or policy adopted by the governing body of a municipality on or after the effective date of this act that violates Section 3 is void and unenforceable. Sounds good at first. If you really read it quickly and read the description, it's like, okay, it's going to stop any municipality, no matter how small or large the government is in Michigan, from requiring these face coverings. We call it the mask, the face shield. It's called so many things I can't count, but they define them in there, right? Awesome. Of course I want that. I want them to, protect our right to breathe. These are God-given rights, not given to us by government. They have no right to restrict how we breathe. So I'm all for the premise. But that's not quite what this bill says. So let's go back to the beginning here. This summary, it's fine and great to a point, but I don't think it's the best summary because this is not part of the bill. So let's look at where the bill starts. Okay? It starts here with Section 1. Okay. Section 2 is definitions. All right, the definitions are pretty straightforward. Now we're going to go to Section 3. This is the key part I want you guys to look at. One more time, you're going to decide for yourself what you think this really says. But I was listening to a podcast stream from Catherine Henry about a month ago. She read this and she agrees with me, or I agree with her, however you want to word it. She thinks this is garbage and that it does nothing and it's poorly written, and I'm going to explain why I think so too. Look at this very first part I've highlighted. Beginning on the effective date of this act. Now, just so you guys know, this is a bill. Okay? This is just a bill that's been referred to committee. This is not yet an act. This is not an act until the date it's signed. So if you think that whatever date it is, beginning on the effective date of this act, if you think that means August 17th, 2020, unfortunately, that's not true. Whenever this, if it were to be signed into law by the governor, passed through both chambers, right, of our legislative branch, that would be the date. You guys know where I'm heading with this already? And then it goes on and says the governing body shall not adopt or enforce. Okay. Well, beginning on that date, they can't enforce anything that was already written. I'm starting to get mixed signals here. But here's the problem I have. First of all, it skips from Section 3 to Section 5. I don't know what happened to Section 4. Normally, 4 follows 3, but in this case, Section 5 follows 3. I don't know if this is just simply a typo or if there's a Section 4 that was accidentally left out. Already not their best written bill based on that. But let's look at what Section 5 says. Any provision in any ordinance, okay, resolution or policy adopted by the governing body of a municipality on or after the effective date of this act that violates Section 3 is void and unenforceable. The void and unenforceable part sounds awesome, but let's go back to this because words matter. These are laws. Every word of a law, this is a proposed bill right now, but if it were to be codified as public statute, law, every word will matter and every word will get picked apart. So we can't just pick the parts of this we like. And I don't know what the purpose of this bill was. If they just didn't word it correctly, or if I have to think maybe that the authors actually meant what they're saying here, because it says what it says. So right here, on or after the effective date of this act. We can't ignore this here. Any provision or ordinance, okay, they're unenforceable. That's great, except for this middle sentence, and it matters because it's written here. On or after the effective date of this act that violates Section 3, void and unenforceable. So here's the essence of it. If this bill were to get through and get more traction, first of all, if we know about it, okay, the people that are of the mask, hyper excessive of the mask. Look, if you guys want to wear a mask, I've always said you can wear it if you want. I don't care. Just nobody else should tell me I have to, right? I'm going to always err on the side of the liberty. If it comes down to where it's like a little bit of dangerous liberty or a little bit of peaceful, sheepish safety, I'm sorry. I want both, but I'm going to err on the side of liberty. So no, nobody should be able to tell you or me where we have to cover ourselves, restrict our breathing, including our young, vulnerable children. So no. You can wear it if you want, though. But here's the problem with this. This doesn't just make it where they can't do it. It clearly says right here, Section 3, beginning on the effective date of this act. Okay? Down below, Section 5. On or after the effective date of this act that violates Section 3. We know about this. The other side. I don't want it to be that way, guys. But unfortunately, that's the way it is. There's two sides right now with all this. The other side. People are going to be, for the mask, for the governor's orders, against the Supreme Court ruling, let's just say. They're reading this too. And even if they haven't read it yet, did you know this? Once it gets passed into law, unlike the Supreme Court case that went into effect immediately, the minute it was signed, the minute it was released, was in effect immediately last Friday. Laws don't work that way in Michigan, actually. There's going to be a time period where the law is published before it has full force and effect. So all these places have to do that you believe are currently infringing on your rights, and that's why you want to pass House Bill 6134 to stop them, they have all that time to just get their policies written down beforehand and get them voted on and get them put into your local township, city, county, state. And then it says right here that only the ones that are adopted on or after the effective date of this act that violate Section 3 are void and unenforceable. So if it's only the ones after the date that this would become a law, right? If it's only those people that will be unenforceable, then that must mean that anyone that hurries up and is making their policies right now, which many people have, those can still be enforced. Now, should we have an act that's very close to this written? Yes, but they need to get rid of the on or after the effective date. That needs to go. We call this poison pill when the gist of it sounds good, but they put something in there where all of a sudden when you're done reading it, you're like, you know what? With how much good it seemed like there was maybe in here, it doesn't do anything. At the very least, it's just a feel-good bill that makes it look like they're doing something against the mask. Now, I've met some of these representatives. Look, I believe they're nice people. It's nothing against them. I don't know if they really realize that's what this says or if they've looked at this. I don't know. Nothing against them personally. You guys can decide. I have no beef with these people. That's not the issue. These are Republicans as far as I can tell. And Steve Johnson, Eisen, I've talked about them in past bills. These guys have written and co-sponsored very, very pro-gun rights legislation. These guys have been, good with a lot of things, but I don't think this bill is what we want. It's not a clean bill. It kind of contradicts itself, and it clearly, in my opinion, and I'm not quoting her word for word, go back and look at her work for yourself, but I remember Catherine Henry reading this, it's probably been a month ago now, on one of her podcasts, and she was saying, no, this doesn't make any sense. if it's on or after the date of this act. These people are already putting these policies in right now. Every minute there's another locality that's putting in another policy that Gretchen said she was going to use to circumvent the court and circumvent the legislature. Look, you guys that are spreading this bill around and saying this is what we need, you guys are my friends. We're all on the same side. I don't want anyone to be mad at me. I'm not mad at you. I'm not citing anyone's names. But maybe read this a little closer. And if I'm wrong, I'm sure you guys will let me know, so I don't even have to state the obvious. But that's how I read it. I don't think this bill is what we want. And I'm going to urge my representative to not vote for 6134. But what I am going to urge him to do is to get a nice clean bill that actually accomplishes what we want. That says basically a lot of the stuff that's in here. But instead of saying on or after the effective date, it just needs to say on, after, during, or before. Or maybe it doesn't even need to say that. It might just be able to say any provision, ordinance, resolution, or policy adopted by the government body of a municipality is void and unenforceable. Probably you just get rid of these two highlighted sections of what of this bill, and it might be all we need. So that's where I'm at with it. They need to go back to the drafting table. We need legislation that takes care of this problem of the governor's tyrannical workaround of the separate but co-equal branches. But in my opinion, we don't need this, and I do not support it. All right, thanks for watching, and have a good one.